Hey everybody, this video, I'm just calling it a gray background fine art technique with something that looks like this right here. Are we ready? Let's do it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, this is dedicated to photography and as a photo artist, pushing ourselves out of the box creatively. Okay, this idea is not mine. I actually learned and actually watched this by one of my major mentors, Joel Grimes, many years ago in his home in Arizona. And I was inspired by that, but my philosophy is, that was taught to me, inspiration is not inspiration unless you act upon that inspiration. Otherwise, I've just been entertained. And that's what happened. I've been entertained because I really didn't follow up with any kind of action until today. All right. And I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone here because I'm actually recording me behind the scenes of doing a photo shoot here. I'm a one person, act here, so I don't have like an assistant and somebody else that can help me out on this. Channel's not big enough to do that, and I really don't want this channel to get that big where I would have to have an assistant help me on certain things. So anyhow, let's take a look at some examples here on what Joel Grimes did, and then I'm going to build this from scratch, sharing with you my thoughts and what I learned during the process. So let's take a look at a couple samples here. Actually, there's going to be three. This one you saw earlier, where the theme here is using flowers. And then I remember him doing a different layout like this. So you can, you could do like four, which I'm going to do four images in a composition here, but you can go for it. I mean, this could be vertical, horizontal, doesn't matter. But the key thing is a theme. Something like this. He told me that he went and got permission from a junkyard and was picking out different old objects to use for this composition right here. So let's take a look at what I did, and you'll see this in the video that I recorded. I decided not to do what Joel did, and that was use a softbox with a strobe, with a reflector on the side. It's on a gray background that he was shooting on the floor. I decided that, hey, most of you may not even have that type of equipment. That's all you need is a camera, a little table, get yourself some gray cloth. That's not, that's not wrinkly or whatever, and not reflective, or, like shiny or whatever, and find yourself a window that has good light coming in, and you can do this. So let's take a look at what I did in one of my spare rooms. Let's take a look at it. Hey everybody, this is going to be out of my comfort zone a bit, but I'm trying to keep things very minimalistic for us. I would normally do something like this in my studio downstairs with a softbox and maybe continuous lights and stuff, but I came to realize that a lot of you don't have, say, a studio or something to work with, or maybe soft boxes. So I'm trying to keep this simple. Find a window in your house. It doesn't have to be a bay window like I have in this room. I'm probably backlit so you can't see me too well, but that's fine. I'm just using, some people call this a TV tray table or whatever. You could use a card table. The key thing is get yourself a neutral gray fabric that is not shiny and again, wrinkle free. And then that's going to be my base. This is what Joel Grimes, I actually had the privilege of watching him do this in his home, and to do this art technique that I'm going to share with you. The other thing I was considering doing is I'm actually going to use 4 items to shoot, but I was considering using a tripod, but I found that most people don't own a tripod like this, where it comes up. This is, by the way, 20 years old. It's a Manfrotto. I don't even know what the model number is. They probably don't make it. But I could have it go like this, where I can mount my camera down, put a 2-second timer on it, hit the trigger and let it shoot, and I'm not going to worry about camera shake. Well, most people are not going to have a tripod like this, so let me get this out of the way. And so I'm going to handhold it with my camera. So I'll share with you the settings in a few minutes, but here's the items I'm going to shoot with, and I'm not going to have you watch me shoot all 4 of these items. I'm just going to do one, and it's going to be this wrench right here. So I'm going to place that down here, about in the center of that table right there.
And the other ones is, I don't know what kind of wrench this is. Obviously, it's not an adjustable wrench, but again, I got these at an antique store. It was like $3-4 or something. Old style hammer here. I don't know what kind that is because I'm not a tool person. And then a rusty C-clamp. So let me share with you my camera settings and how I'm going to shoot this. Again, make sure that your light is consistent. Like if I'm adjusting how much of a shadow I want to have on this and brightness. And you could actually use a reflector if you want to tone down that shadow. So I would get like a whiteboard, even a aluminum foil or something to put on the side so the light would bounce back in. But I like the shadow the way it is. So I'm going to turn this on. I've got my ISO setting to, let me get rid of the cap back here. The ISO is 1000. I'm at aperture priority is my setting. I'm shooting at 5.6, and I'm just going to hold down my camera on an angle like this. By the way, I'm shooting at 35 mil, and it'll pre-focus automatically. Shoot, and let's take a look at this. I'll put this up on the screen for you, and let me just do one more. And that looks pretty good right there. So what we'll do is, again, I'm going to shoot the other three. I'm just repeating the same process, so it's going to waste time for you to watch this. It's pretty boring. But I will go down in my studio. We'll open this up into Photoshop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the wrench for you, and from very beginning to end. The other three I'll have done already because, again, I'm just repeating the same process, and there's no sense having you watch me do that, and it's going to take like over an hour and just repeating it over and over again. So I'll show you the finished ones, and then I'm going to put all four together as one composition. Are we ready? Let's head down and take a look at this in Photoshop.
All right, before I jump into Photoshop, I just want to mention I changed my mind on something and I didn't record it, and that was I was not happy with the C-clamp and how it turned out. So I went back and photographed. I found an old hatchet, and it just worked better in the composition. So if I remember, I'll show you the C-clamp and why I didn't choose it. But let's jump into Photoshop and let's open up the wrench photo. And what I did was I picked a couple textures I wanted to work with. So again, you could go to, these I can't share with you because I actually paid for those years ago. And so it's licensed to me for personal use and projects and that, but so I can't give them out to you. But go to, I think it's Unsplash, do a search for unsplash.com and do a search for textures there. That's free to download, and there's probably other websites too. If you have an Adobe account, you get so many downloads in their free category that you could use per month. If you use it up, then you got to pay a fee for that. But you can find textures there also. But this is the image. This is the wrench. So I'm only going to do the one image because the process I'm going to do here is the same for the other three images. And there's no sense, wasting time watching that happen. So I'm going to do this one, and then behind the scenes, I'll do the other one identical to this. Now, when I take a look at this, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to have this as a square. And so what I need to do is go to the crop feature here. And let's make sure we go to the preset here. And let's make that a 1:1 aspect ratio. And I decided that I didn't want the full, say, tool, centered in there because it just seems to be somewhat lost in the background. So what I decided to do in my thought process here, I don't know if that's much of a thought process, but I'm going to zoom in on this like Joel did on a lot of the flowers. The stem would go off. So I'm just going to do that. That looks pretty straight to me. And I'll just accept that right there and then choose to open that. But you know what? Before I do that, let me go over here to the category where I can maybe lighten this up a bit. Let's see, contrast, I'll leave alone shadows. I might pull up the shadows a bit. And then I'm going to go to the mask category here in Adobe Camera Raw. And I'm going to choose subject. I'm curious if it'll pick up that wrench. Yes, it did. Okay, and I'm going to come down here in the menu. And I'm going to come down to this area here that's texture. And because I'm going to apply textures to this, overlay textures, I really want to grunge this up a bit. So I'm going to push this to the right like that. And clarity, I'm going to crank that up a bit right there. So again, everything here is very subjective. It's the look that you want. So that's what I need to emphasize. This is the look I want to get out of this. You may not want to do this that far. And I'm just going to click on open to open that up and let it drop into Photoshop. Okay, now that I have that done, move this to the side. What I want to do is I'm planning in advance on this project, and I'm thinking I might want to print this at a later time. So I want to make sure I have decent resolution. So I think my project, when I'm done, should be 20 inches by 20 inches at 300 as a resolution. So if I go 20 by 20, that means each image should be 10 by 10. Hopefully that makes sense, because I'm going to drop 4 images into the 20 by 20 area. So I always like to do this. This was taught to me years ago. I always start with the end in mind first. So what I'm going to do is go to File drop-down menu, and I'm going to choose New. And when the dialog box opens up, I'm going to go over here to my measurements. It's going to be in inches here. I want this to be 10 inches by 10 inches for the height and 300 res. So that gives me a good base to work with. And then I'm just going to choose Create. Now, before I do that, I'm going to change this to 16-bit. And I'll talk about why I want to do that a little bit later. So I'm going to choose Create. Now, obviously, when you're shooting with your camera, if you're shooting in RAW, you're shooting in 16-bit. We can actually see that in the tab over here. There's a 16. That tells me it's a 16-bit image. And my blank one here also is 16-bit. Otherwise, it would say it would be 8. So I have 16 to match with 16. And so what I'm going to do is take the image here, and I'm going to hold my Shift key down, click and drag to the other tab, drop down here, let go, and that should place that dead center. Now I'm going to do Control T or Command T if you're on a Mac. That gives me the free transform tool. I'm going to hold the Alt key down. That would be Option on a Mac. So when I come to the corner here to grab that, the Alt key is down, Option on a Mac. When I resize this, it goes in the center point. So I can just pull this out to fill in that entire square area and then Enter on the keyboard. So I sort of like that workflow a little bit better. Now here's where I get to play. And that is, I'm going to open up the textures. So I'm in the wrong spot here. Let's see. It should be under, oh yeah, right there. What am I thinking, Steve? So let me open that up. And I'm going to take this and we're going to put this, by the way, this right here, that is the 16-bit image. I don't really need that. So I'm going to close out of that because I have it here in my project. So let me close out of that just to keep my head straight, and just going to say no. That's called living on the edge. And what I'm going to do here is let's grab that texture, and I'm going to hold that Shift key down again, click and drag over here, drop it in, choose yes, and then Control T, Command T on a Mac to grab the free transform tool. Again, I'm going to hold the Alt key down, Option on a Mac as I resize this. It makes it go in the center point and make it fit over the entire image right there, and then Enter on my keyboard. Then we're going to play with blending modes. Now, here's a key thing. Based on what I'm doing, I need to remember my settings here and what I ended up doing, because I want to replicate this with the other 3 images. So I'm going to play with different blending modes to see what I like. That's too bright. I think I'm just going to jump on multiply right there. So I'm going to choose that. And let me see what happens if I do Control J, Command J on a Mac. I'm duplicating that. Ooh, I like that better. I like that. Again, personal preference on this stuff. And then let me go to the, yeah, I don't need that anymore. Let me go to that texture right there. Hold the Shift key down again, click and drag it into my project. Pull down, let go. It should put it dead center. And again, Control T. I think I got lucky on that one. Yeah, perfect. That must be a 10 by 10 size texture. And then again, just I'm playing with blending modes here. See which one I like. Soft light, overlay, multiply, overlay. I might go with overlay and maybe push this down a bit. And I'm not sure. I think I might go back to multiply. Again, not right or wrong on this stuff. Let me push this back up. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to come down here to the image that has the wrench there, and I'm going to choose in my contextual taskbar, select subject, see if that picks it up. All right. And then what I'm going to do is, let's go up here at the very top, and I'm going to hold the Alt key down, Option on a Mac, and I'm going to click on here at the very bottom to add a mask. So I'm going to hold the Alt key down, click on that, and that, if you remember the rule on the mask, white reveals, black conceals. So the black here of the wrench, let me pull that up so you can see that. That's hiding this texture there. And so if I hold the Shift key down, turn on, you can see on and off. It makes that wrench pop a little bit. And then everything else is fine tuning. Maybe come down here to Oreo cookie dipped in milk, and I'm gonna, let's pull up curves, and maybe I'll do like an S curve here. Just to add some contrast. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, so I need to remember all my steps. So what I would do is I would save this as a PSD file. And that way I can open this up and sort of re-engineer what I did with the other three, so I can follow the same steps. So I can say, okay, there's the object there, and I did that texture in multiply blending mode. I duplicated it there because it's, again, multiply blending mode. Then I use this one, and again, multiply blending mode 100%, but I masked out that tool so it's not affected by this top one. And then I added an S curve right there. So I can remember that steps if I come back to this tomorrow or the next day to do the other, three images right there. Now, the other thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to explain why I'm going to do this in a minute, but I'm going to go to the image drop-down menu, and I'm going to choose duplicate. And then I'm going to give this a name. We'll just call this a wrench. Excuse me. Clicking OK. And now it gave me a duplicate. So my original is there. I would close this out, save it as a PSD file. But today I'm going to live on the edge, so I'm not going to save it. It's a demo. And this one, I'm going to go to the top layer, hold the Shift key down, click on the bottom layer, Control E, Command E on a Mac, and I consolidate everything down to a single layer because that'll keep my file size smaller. Then I'm going to go to File, Save As. I'm saving it as a TIFF file, and then choose Save. Why would I do that? The TIFF format, flattened down like this, well, whether it's flattened down or not, the TIFF format actually supports a 16-bit image. If I exported that as a JPEG, it's now an 8-bit image, and I'm losing a lot of information. So anytime I'm building a composite and there's multiple layers, I tend to always save everything as a PSD, but then my final output, I'll make a duplicate copy, save it as a TIFF, flatten it down, because it'll be a 16-bit image, because when I go to my printer or send it out to Fine Art Printer, they can actually print in 16-bit. So that gives me better information. Most of your common places you send your images out to, they want it as a JPEG and it's an 8-bit image. They don't have the equipment to do a 16-bit, say, fine art print. where my printer, which is an Epson, it's out of date. You can't buy it. You have to buy the entry level's Sure Color, I think it's called. P700 is the entry level, but in theory, you can actually print in 16-bit, so it gives me that bigger range. Okay, so let's get done with this, which I am finished with this. I'm going to save this, and we're going to come back and put all 4 images together. And if I remember, I'll share with you why I didn't use a C-clamp. So let's take a look at that. Okay, once again, the concept that was taught to me is always start with the end in mind first when you're building a project. So an example back here in Photoshop, if I go to File drop-down menu and I'm going to choose New, my project is going to be a 20-inch. The height is 20-inch. It's 300 as a resolution. And again, I want it to be 16-bit because if I print it on my printer, or if this was sent out to a different company that would do it for me, I want the 16-bit. Of course, you have to have a company that knows how to do that. So I'm just going to click on Create to accept that. So this is going to be my project. Now, I'm going to use the 4 images. And what I'd like to do is have some guidelines here. So I'm going to go to the View drop-down menu, come down to Guides, and choose New Guide Layout. And it tends to remember what you did last time. I can't remember last time I used these guides, but I only need 2 columns. 2 rows, and do I want a gutter or not? I'm not going to have any gutter at all. I'm going to put all the 4 images, next to each other, or touching each other. So there's no margin, nothing like that. So I'm just going to select OK to accept that. And that's where I'm going to drop in the 4 images. Now let's take a look at the images. And by the way, you can do Control H for a while if you want to get rid of that, or Command H on a Mac if you want to hide those guidelines. And then I'll do Control H again. Command H brings it back. So I should just have them activated anyhow. But if that was bothering you, that's what you would do. So now let's go to the Open Dialog box. And let's take a look at the 4 images I'm going to use. And this is the one I was not happy with, and that was the C-clamp. It just didn't seem to fit well as a theme with that, second wrench I did, the hammer right there. So I replaced it. I found an old axe and I did that. So it just seemed to be better of a fit. Hopefully that makes sense. So even though I did do that, I just didn't like the way it was matching up with the other 3. So that's why I did that one right there. So let me go and select that and that one and that one. I'm just multi-selecting these by holding the Control key down or Command on a Mac, and then just choose Open. Let those open up. And then this is where you just start having fun. And actually, I'm going to do some fine tuning on this. So an example, let's take the wrench, and I'm just going to, again, now this one, I'm not going to hold the Shift key down because I don't want it dead center. So I'm just going to click and drag it over, drop it in, and position it in this spot right there. And hopefully that makes sense that I did this 10 inches by 10 inches as an image that we saved it, knowing I'm going to put it into a 20 by 20, and each square here is 10 by 10. And so now that I have that done, let's get rid of the wrench right there, and let's take, did I do that right? Click and drag, let's move it to the project. And we can always reposition these again, and then go to that hatchet right there, click and drag, drop that in. Let's see, where do I want that? Let's put it there. Might change my mind later. And that's the hatchet, so we don't need that. And the hammer, so we'll just do this. And let's drop that in. Okay, so let me move that to the side. Now, I really don't need the guidelines right now, but it just helps snap everything in. So I'll just do Control H or Command H to hide. Or if you just want to clear them all, what you would do is just go to View drop-down menu, come down to Guides, and in there will be Clear Guides, and now they're gone. Okay, so this is my composition, but one of the things I noticed that Joel did was he had each one, or sometimes an opposite one, a different, say, color or whatever. So what I could do is let me select the wrench right here, this one, the second wrench. And what I'm going to do is, I don't know if I want to add a filter. Well, yeah, you know what? Let me play with that. I'm going to come over here and just say, let's do a photo filter. And it's applying to everything from this point down. And I only want it to affect this. So we should know this by now because I do a lot of this. And that is I need to create a clipping mask. So you could right mouse click on the gray area here and choose to create a clipping mask in the drop down menu. I prefer to just hold the Alt key down or Option on a Mac, hover between the two layers, and my hand changes to a symbol that looks like that. The square with the arrow pointing down, click down with my index finger on the mouse, and I just clipped it. So now as I over-exaggerate this, you can see the only thing that's changing is the wrench in the upper left-hand corner. So I might want to just, play with that. You can click on this and say, well, I don't like that color. Maybe let's go into more of the yellow area. Or let's move the slides. Let's go in the blue area. Ooh, I like that. Maybe I'll do something like that. And then push the intensity up a bit. And again, this is all, whatever your liking is, or maybe you don't even want to do that. And then I'm going to come down here to, let's see, the opposite would be this one right here. So I want to apply the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this layer, hold the Alt key down, Option on a Mac, click and drag, should copy that up, and then I'm going to have to clip that. So again, I'm clipping that. So now I've got that. The other two I might leave, or again, you could maybe apply a filter to that. I mean, it's totally up to you. The only thing that bothers me on this, again, would be fine-tuning, is the hammer down here. The red it draws my attention too much there. So what I'm going to do is go to that picture, which is right here. And let's do a hue and saturation. And you know what I need to do? I'm going to click on that and choose to select that. I just want to select that hammer. There we go. Go over here to my, let's see, mask there for hue and saturation. And I'm having a blank. I think it's Alt-Delete. My chip color here is black and white. The black's on top. So I think it's Alt-Delete. Yes, that's it. It filled it in. You can see that right there. It filled that in with black. So there would be Option Delete on a Mac computer. Just make sure your chip color there on top is black. And then let's get rid of the marching ants right there. And what I want to do is select the hue and saturation area. And I don't know if I want to just, no. Oh, Steve, guess what I did? White reveals, black conceals. Control-I, Command-I, sorry about that, to invert that. And let's go back. And so this should be just affecting that. I think I'm going to just choose, it sees the red there. I'm going to click on that. And let me push that back a bit on the reds. And maybe on the yellows, push that back a little bit. We go back to the reds again. Okay, so you got the idea. I'm sort of playing with this. In other words, this just draws too much attention to me with that red. And now that I got this done, maybe I want to affect everything overall. So that's where you can come over here to the Oreo cookie dipped in milk again. And maybe I'll just go to curves and we'll just maybe do an S curve here. So I'm going to click on this, just to add some heavy contrast to that. And again, personal preference on this. So that really pops it right there. And then that could be my finished project. And then again, what I would do is, let me just review this real fast. That is, I would save this as a PSD file, sort of like my source, project right there. And then I would go back in Photoshop. In fact, let me do it again. Let me go back here to Image, drop-down menu, choose Duplicate. By the way, if you're learning anything, if you do me a favor, then just like the video, subscribe if you're not subscribed, hit that notification bell. Next time I upload a video, you'll get notified on that. All right, so I'm going to just choose Duplicate again and maybe call this my finished project or something. I just call it finished. And then click on OK. And then this is the one, because again, it created a new tab here. So this, I don't need the hammer there. We'll get rid of that. And we don't need that wrench right there. So that's the This would be saved as a PSD as a reminder, and this one would be saved, this is the finished one, as a TIFF file, but I want to select all my layers by holding the Shift key from one point to the other, Control E, Command E on a Mac to flatten it down. That makes my file size smaller. And if I send this out to Service Bureau, they don't want a TIFF file with all the layers and that kind of stuff in it. They just want a single layer file to work with right there. And then again, I would save this as the TIFF. So again, if you need this for social media, then you just go to File drop-down menu again, save a copy, save it as a JPEG. So just do JPEG right here real quick. Choose Save. And then make your adjustment. Do you want it to be high res or whatever? I'm just making that. And by the way, when you save it as a JPEG, automatically, it will no longer be a 16-bit file. That will be an 8-bit. Just to prove that to you, let's go back and find that JPEG right there. Open it up, and you'll see right here, you'll see the number 8. The JPEG is always going to be 8-bit. So I can use this again on social media if I want. All right, so hopefully you learned something here. I think this is really cool. I'm finally took that idea that I saw him do years ago. And Joel Grimes, thanks for your time and energy to actually be able to watch you do this kind of work in your home and in your home studio. And again, try this, see what you can come up with. The key thing is, what I learned is making a theme, which I didn't like that C-clamp. It just didn't fit this right. Like, I'll say all flowers, and maybe you had all flowers except one object was not a flower or something else. It just didn't follow that theme right there. All right, people. So till next time, let's think creatively out of the box. And I mean literally out of the box. See ya.